It is not tourism. It is, I would say, call it cancerous tourism. It's a concept of destruction. It's a concept of devastation. We called it tragedy. I would call it human stupidity. You will find that the government has paid more in losses than it has got out of this kind of tourism. You cannot just have a model of religious tourism where people keep dying. Even after all these tragedies, not even a single political party in the last general election made environment its issue.
If these current trends continue, what are we looking at?
I would say what the Honorable Supreme Court said for Himachal Pradesh. It will be wiped off the map within a decade. If the same thing continues. And not only Himachal Pradesh, before Himachal, Uttarakhand will be wiped off.
Over the past few weeks, the Himalayan state of Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and Jammu and Kashmir have witnessed one of the worst spells of flooding, landslide, and destructive rains. Roads have been washed away, villages cut off, and lives tragically lost. But are these disasters simply natural occurrences, or are they being worsened by human activities and policy choices? To break this down today, we've been joined by Dr. Manu Singh, an environmentalist who's been talking about on this issue for quite some time. Thank you so much, Dr. Singh, for joining us here at Times Now. First of all, Dr. Singh, I want to understand from you, when we look at these intense floods and cloud bursts, how much of this can be honestly linked to climate change? Or is this simply part of the Himalayan weather cycle we have always seen?
Well, I would say it's both, but I would incline more towards the effects of climate change exacerbating what is naturally a Himalayan variability and a combination of microscopic, ever changing climatic terrain in the Himalayas. Because as the global temperatures are increasing due to, we all know that we have been the key factors, we, meaning human species, in increasing these global temperatures. And because of climate change, the air has become warmer comparatively centuries, and warmer air holds more moisture than before. Secondly, the climate has also become erratic, and we have seen a more than 700% increase in the formation of cumulonimbus clouds, clouds that hold more moisture, are more dense. So, what happens is with these dense clouds, when monsoon is moving, we will see that there are areas in central India that do not receive adequate rainfall because for a dense cloud to reach the precipitation point, you need extremely cold winds. And all those laden clouds, when they reach, say, a Himalayan region, and this is not only limited to Uttarakhand, Kashmir, and Himachal, but we've seen devastation in the Himalayan regions in China and also in Pakistan, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, more than 400 people died just a couple of weeks ago. So what happens is when these moisture-laden clouds hit the Himalaya, there's a orographic effect. And as the IMD also defines, the precipitation is reached and immediately the downpour begins. And we have a cloud burst, which is more than or equal to 100 mm rain in, say, about a duration of less than 1 hour of 20 in a space of 20 to 30 square kilometers. This extreme rainfall then exacerbates further because of ill-planned areas in the mountains with a lot of debris lying here and there. and the result is that there is devastation all around. So if I have to divide it, I would say 20% is natural Himalayan variability, but 80% has been exacerbated due to climate change. Also, glacial melting has been unprecedented in the last 2 decades. That also not only intensifies cloud burst, but any hydrological extreme when it comes to high mountain region.
There's also has been rapid urbanization, road building, hotels are cropping up everywhere. In fact, you go to any part of the city, hotels are everywhere, big infrastructure projects in the states. From your perspective, has this kind of unplanned urbanization has also contributed to the floodings and these kind of disasters?
A most definite yes. And it's not only an unplanned concept of development. What the concept of development that we are saying is not a concept of development at all. It's a concept of destruction. It's a concept of devastation. What was promised to say a state like Uttarakhand that we will have hospitals which will at least be present in 8 villages put together. That schools will be present in at least 3 villages put together. What's the condition with hospitals and schools right now? If you travel up in the hilly regions of Uttarakhand, you will find that the people call the hospitals present there as referral hospitals. So apart, if you get small injuries, they can treat that. Apart from that, they'll only refer you to a bigger hospital, more advanced facilities in cities like Haldwani or Dehradun. So this is not development. This illegal sprouting of unregulated construction industry with respect to only construction of roads, which aren't required, which are not scientifically planned, and hotels and resorts just to cater to the needs of an ecotourism model, not an ecotourism model. This is devastating the surfaces of young fold mountains, and you see these. This will continue to amplify damages by destabilizing the slopes, and when the slopes are destabilized, you have speedy runoffs of not only water but also concrete and debris during landslide. So yes, this unplanned construction is going on. To add to that, not only is this unplanned, but you see that the river systems are being damaged, completely demolished. And how? Because there are guidelines, especially for the hilly region, that there are limits from the river bank that you have to leave this much area and then the construction should begin. If you look at those poignant images of Dharali, you will see that the construction was bang in the middle of the rivers. Of course, they're not perennial, but no mountain and river is generally perennial. But when the flood came, we called it tragedy. I would call it human stupidity to be constructing resorts and hotels bang near the river banks. And this is happening in Himachal as we speak. Yesterday's visuals of the Beas swallowing away resorts and hotels across the belt. That's just tragic, but also stupid.
Well, absolutely. And you very rightly mentioned, we spoke to a lot of locals also, and they talk about how the encroachment is done on the riverbeds. That's what you're saying for sand mining as well and for project building. So there is another aspect to it, which is deforestation. So how do you think how big of a role deforestation plays in landslides and these sorts of flash floods?
Okay. So we need to understand this deep connection between a tree and a slope. What happens
Absolutely.
is, especially in a young fold mountain, the top layer is of alluvial soil, which is a very loosely bound soil, right? Any say small jerk can unsettle the combination of or the structural integrity of a mountain. But the Himalayan flora, it has roots like ropes that bind these soils together. It keeps the entire structural integrity of the slope of the mountain together. What is happening is there is massive deforestation. Not only is it illegal, but I am shocked that so many reports have gone in, but the government continues to allow felling of trees now, which is just I can't understand that even when we have been continuously slapped by disaster after disaster. When it comes to nature sending us a message, this deforestation hasn't stopped. Secondly, also the social factor we must address, that people in these regions have become very used to, in the winters, lighting forest fires and then obtaining whatever they need from the leftover effects of the destructive nature of that forest fire. So this combined structure has ensured that the runoffs are now becoming violent. That when they are becoming violent, the debris is already there. They're taking the debris with them. The momentum of this combined water runoff, and debris is so devastating. What we saw both in Chasoti, in Dharali. In fact, in 2021, we saw two hydropower plants completely devastated with this kind of a momentum, which was caused by a slurry that was caused with a mixture of water and loose alluvium soil and the debris. So this is becoming a very, very precarious situation right
I was
now.
about to ask you about the hydropowers because one big debate is that around dams and hydropower project itself, they were supposed to help regulate water. But what the locals are saying, perhaps we heard from a lot of locals that this is adding to the problem. The entirety of the issue is being overlooked while making these projects. And actually, apart from solving the electricity issue, they're creating numerous other issues. So, what is your assessment on that, sir?
I see, I'm not an electrical expert, but I can tell you for sure that the amount of issues they create far eclipse the amount of issues that we try to solve. First and foremost, Youngfold Mountain, which is not only controlling the climate of its region through microscopic mushroom climate indicators, but also controls the pull of the monsoon for the entire subcontinent, for not only the entire India, but the entire Indian subcontinent. In that region, what happened after Tihri Dam? The microscopic climate has gone awry. And you can see, just you don't need to go into reports, just calculate the amount of cloudbursts, the amount of landslides after. And this is palpable very clearly when we look at the amount of increase in the temperature in Tihri region after that lake was constructed. Because we all know that small streams of water, when they are running, they do not absorb that much amount of sunlight. But if you convert into a huge lake, that gives you an effect of a maritime climate in a localized region. But that localized region completely devastates the microclimate belt of that region. And what is formed is more orographic effects, more warmer air production, and thus more humidly dense clouds, and thus more cloud bursts. So yeah, uh, I would still say that we need development for across the mountains. So if I have to propose, I will propose a series of several small hydropower projects instead of having uh, huge cumbersome projects which will devastate the microclimate of that region.
So, Dr. Singh, you touched upon one very crucial aspect of also the tourism part of this entire crisis. Every year, we see hordes of people going towards these mountain destinations. We understand tourism is the backbone of Himachal Pradesh and states like Uttarakhand, but there is also concerns about over tourism. Do you think the sheer pressure on this ecosystem from tourists is also making this entire situation worse?
Well, as I generally quote from Ayurvedic texts a lot, it's pretty palpable in our culture that if we have to define venom or poison, it is defined as excess of anything. In the same scenario, I would pit tourism too, because if you see that regulated eco-tourism is the need of the hour, and even Prime Minister Modi has referred to it a lot in his speeches. And I'm not saying to compare India to a nation like Switzerland, but we can definitely compare ourselves to, say, Bhutan. If tourism is sustainable, if tourism is eco-friendly, if tourism is regulated, if it is scientific, then tourism is a bliss, and it will not only bring revenue, but it will also help the state gain its glory. But if the tourism is done like this, what is happening in Himachal and Uttarakhand, it is not tourism. It is, I would say, I would go a step further and say, call it cancerous tourism, because this will destroy the state. And if you have to see the repercussions of that, this ego friendly tourism instead of eco tourism, this misadventurism, you will find that the government has paid more in losses than it has got out uh, of this kind of tourism. So, economically speaking, also, this is a ravaging form of tourism, and it must be regulated. The tourism carrying capacity should be regulated not only in terms of adventure, but also if you look clearly, then Uttarakhand specifically is a religious tourism state. The Char Dham road construction should be monitored again. It should be monitored, keeping nature in the center, keeping Yangford Mountains in the center, and keeping science in the center. You cannot just have a model of religious tourism where people keep dying. So this kind of tourism must be overlooked and revamped as per the the scientific tenets, and especially addressing uh, nature and ecology.
You've put it really well, sir, because a lot of people just go there without understanding the repercussions of it. And perhaps it's not just the public to blame. There's also part of the government which comes here when state and central government should collaborate and talk about these issues, how probably the bad systems, a lot of things have been created in the past, but none really have worked.
which is
So
which
this
is
brings
which is
to
absent, and I'll add one more thing, just giving an example of, say, pairing the tourists, the so-called religious tourists, the Tirth which is against the concept of Sanatan Dharma itself, through helicopters. I mean, I can quote n number of reports which state that in a Yangfold mountain, if there is constant vibration causing, not only will it affect the fragile tectonic plates of the region, but also, again, destabilize the alluvial soil structures of the mountains. Thirdly, it is also devastating for all the species that also call it home. But if you go to a place like Kedarnath, you would see that there is a helicopter flying every single minute.
absolutely.
And you have not thought about, say, a more eco-friendly approach of building say, a towway or a ropeway there. You still are using 1940s and 30s model of having donkeys fly people, which is again against animal rights. So this must be revamped, this must be overlooked, and scientific models must be proposed, especially after the 2013 tragedy.
You've talked about a lot of things which needs to be done in terms of governance. What do you think kind of a policy shift would you recommend to balance the development and keeping the environmental issues in mind, specifically in these very fragile regions?
First of all, the intent. I mean, even after all these tragedies, not even a single political party in the last general election made environment its issue. Not even a single. It was absent from all the agendas. Forget about mountain regions. We are losing 1.7 million people in North India due to air pollution every year. That's one in every 20 seconds. And still, our political parties cannot bring it to the fore. Why that needs to be done is because the concept of development should not migrate away from nature, ecology, or the protection and uh, care of other living creatures as well. It should also be scientific in nature. It should not be just a greed based paradigm. It should be a need based paradigm which respects ecology, which respects nature, and which respects, above all, scientific values. That's a general thing. For especially for mountainous regions, for mountain state, I would say that uh, we must have slope sensitive road rules, which tend to enforce narrow benching rules. Bio engineering models have catch drains there. Debris disposal is very important. Debris disposal should be done scientifically. Right now, if you travel anywhere in the mountains, you see that the debris is just being thrown away into the rivers. So,
Absolutely.
there should be an immediate pause, as recommended by a lot of scientists, on the widening of highly unstable stretches uh, until you get proper geotechnical clearance. Secondly, river corridors must be protected, and this is an absolute no-go zone. We must legally maybe have a Supreme Court committee, and we've had in the past, map and clear the floodplains. This is unquestionable. If this doesn't happen, we'll continue having devastation caused by not only cloud burst but flooding. So then, because the climate change is also global phenomena, we must have an early warning micro basin early warning system. We must have, and I think the government is investing in a Doppler radar system, which is the need of the hour. Even, and I would say that to certain extent, it's highly unpredictable where a cloud burst will happen. But with these early warning systems in place, at least we'll be able to save a lot of lives. Hydropower clearance, another thing that is that must be looked again and revamped. We must have smaller hydro power project if we cannot do away with them. If we can, that's the best. And finally, tourism and culture. The people traveling up the hills, they must realize that when they are going there, we call it Devasthan for a reason. You should not leave your plastic there. You should be indulging in all ecotourism models. And the people who are residing in those places, they must realize that dumping resorts and hotels illegally is not development. Uh, Concrete-based development in mountains is a destructive model. They should also follow the eco-based norms of construction. I think with all these points, we can at least mitigate uh, the losses that arise due to cloudburst, and probably things are looking even worse now in times to come, because we all know the sheer size of glacial lakes that have formed in the mountainous terrain of North India. There are more than 30,000 right now, and 20% of them are more than 10 square kilometer in area. So we will soon have combined globs after cloudburst, which can turn into a Himalayan tsunami. And this might happen within the next 2 3 years, like it happened in Nepal last year.
Very alarming. And I was about to ask you this question. If these current trends continue, what are we looking at? What is the future? Are we staring at a point where some towns simply become unsafe to actually habitate in or live in for even the locals who've been staying there for centuries now?
Grossly understated. I would say what the Honorable Supreme Court said for Himachal Pradesh. It will be wiped off the map within a decade or two if the same thing continues. And not only Himachal Pradesh, before Himachal, Uttarakhand will be wiped off. It will be unsustainable to live there. It will be unsustainable to go there. If we do not pause this kind of concept of development, this paradigm immediately with like immediate effect, I can predict a very dangerous future, and that dangerous future will then ripple into a dangerous future for the entire subcontinent. We will have an acute water shortage. We are already surviving on 3% global water with the 19% population. That 3% would go down to 1%, and you will have an actual civil war, first time in this country due to water.